Hello everyone. Welcome to my educational channel Gravity Tech, where excitement and knowledge collide. Whether you are a long-time subscriber or just stumbled upon us, I am thrilled to have you join my online community. So, get ready to embark on a journey of discovery, education, learning, and inspiration. Here, you will find a diverse range of content on computer science and mathematics. But it's not just about what you will see on a screen. It's about the connections we will forge together. Our comment section is a hub of insightful discussions where your thoughts and opinions are not only welcomed but celebrated. So, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the latest content. Thank you for being a part of my YouTube family. Let's make every click count and turn this channel into the source of endless inspiration. Now, let's continue with the sixth lecture of this course on Python. In today's course, we are going to cover Python list. What are exactly the list? How do we access the elements of list? How do we create that list? What are the different operations we can perform on the list? Right? What are the inbuilt functions we can use on the list? Everything about list we are going to see in this session. So, what exactly are you going to cover as a part of this session? Let's see. Right, the objective is to understand lists in Python. Even if you don't know the abcd of lists, you will learn what are the lists in Python and how to use those. Okay, and then at the end we will see what exactly are we going to cover as a part of the next session after this. So, Python list, I'm just going to cover the high level topics as a list here, and then we'll go to the PyCharm IDE for the practical examples. Okay, so stay with me. We're going to see how to create the list without or with duplicate items, accessing list elements, whether it is a single dimension list, whether it is a multi-dimension list, how to use negative indexing on the lists, how to find out the size of the list, how to read the list elements from the stdin, that is user input, how do we modify the list, what are the functionalities available to append, insert, or extend list. How do we reverse the complete list? Removing the elements from the list, if I want to maybe remove or delete certain elements, how do I? How do I use the pop functionality of the list and what does it really mean? How do I slice a list? What are the list comprehensions? Okay, now these all things we are going to look into the practically. Now let's go back to the PyCharm IDE and see all of these things. Okay, so here is a PyCharm IDE, and then I have a blank file here, the named as what, python underscore lists dot py. Okay, now what are the Python list? That means what are the lists in a Python, right? These are same as the arrays. You might have learned the arrays in other programming languages, C++, Java, right? In these languages you already learned what are the arrays. Similarly, Python has the lists, but what is the difference then? The lists are dynamic. Lists are dynamic. You can change the lists afterward, right? You can maybe add elements, remove elements, and all. But in arrays, you cannot, because arrays are what? These are static. Okay. Now, then how the lists are? See, list will be always, let's say, some list name. Okay. I'll give you the how to create the list, right? Let's say now list name. You need to give a list name as what? A variable name, right? So list name is a name of the list, and then whatever list you want to put it, like that should be enclosed in this kind of brackets. List is always, it starts with this square bracket and ends with the square brackets. Okay, and then you can have any elements here, a comma separated elements, let's say 1 2 3, right? What does this mean? Now list underscore name is a list type of variable which has three elements, 1, 2, and 3. Remember, if there is nothing, what does that mean? It's an empty list. Okay, so this is how the list data type is basically initialized and used. Okay, now let's say if I create let's see if I create any list, right? Let's say sample list name will complete will use test list as a name. Okay, now let's say test list. If I want to create it, let's say Rakesh 2345.6. Okay, now if you see this is one of the other differences that in arrays and lists. Arrays are supposed to be of the same type elements, right? But in list you can have different types of elements as an element. Uh, so this is all the string, this is an integer, this is a float. Remember, so in Python the list can have multiple data types inside the list as a elements. Okay, now when you try to print it, right, when you try to print test list, it will just maybe quickly give the complete output as they see. Now it has given the output Rakesh 2345.6. Okay, so lists are basically these are kind of simplest containers that are integral part of the Python language. Now lists, this is what we saw, right? Lists are need not to be homogeneous. What does that mean? So it is not always like you need to have a similar kind of data types inside it. You can have the combination as well. So this is called as heterogeneous, means what? More than one type of data types of elements, right? That means heterogeneous. Whereas if you have all the strings, right, that means also homogeneous. So in C++, Java, the arrays are like the homogeneous data type, whereas list is what? A heterogeneous in what? A Python. Now let's say, how do we create a list, right? Just placing a basically a sequence inside a square brackets. That's what actually we just saw, right? Inside a square brackets, you need to just put a sequence, and that's how we create a basically list, right? So list can be blank as well. Now let's say if you just maybe comment out this, and then if you say test list, see, do we have any element inside this? No. What does that mean? This is a blank. This is a blank list. Yeah. If you look at, right, when we print, it will give you what? A blank output. Now, if you want to initialize this with some kind of numbers, let's say 2345 minus 89. So here we can basically just say, right, list of numbers. Correct. Now, see, we have already seen how to use the print. Print is the function, right, where whatever you provide as a comma separated stuff, those will be separated by a space. So it will first print this string as it is list of numbers, and then whatever the value of test underscore list, it will print that. See, so list of numbers is going to be this, right? So this is called as a homogeneous. What do we call it as a homogeneous, right? What does it mean by homogeneous? Homogeneous means all the elements of similar kind, and this is called as what? Heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means what? Can be of different types. Okay, remember. So the list can be homogeneous, list can be heterogeneous. Now, how do we access the list items? How do we access the list items? Those are numbered. Remember, those are numbered. Okay, so if you want to access this element, right, this is numbered as what? 0. Okay, this is what? Numbered as what? 0. The next one is numbered as 1. The next one is numbered as 2. So if I say 56th element is numbered in what? 55. Correct. If I say nth element, it is numbered as n minus 1. Why? Because first, this is the first element, but in actual, it is numbered as what? 0. It is the first element numbered as, so it is the second element numbered as what, 2. So if you want to access the 45, right, you can just say print, and then let's try to print a first element, correct? Now first element, if you want to access the first element, you need to use the indexing like this. So what does this mean? This means test list, but only zeroth element. That means 23 it will print. Now, if you want to print the second element, what you need to basically do it here, you just need to change it what? 1. Correct? Now, similarly, if you want to print the third element, you would just need to give the index, right? What is the number of that element, right? Ordering. So when you try to print this, see, the first element is 23, second element is 45, and the third element is what? 89. So similarly, if you want to access, let's say 56th of the element, you will say what? 55. If you want to access the nth element, here it will come as what? N minus 1. Remember, so this is how you can basically create the lists and access the elements from the list. So the time complexity for creating the list is what? Basically big O of n, remember. So the time complexity is what? Big O of 1 or big O of n. Remember? Okay. Now, how do we create a list? Like maybe with the duplicate or distinct elements, right? So let's say if I give here 23 again, if I give here 23 again, is this allowed? Yes, this is allowed. Why? So if you can have the duplicate elements here, remember, you can have 23 multiple times. Let's say now if you want to create a list of, if you have a class, if you are a class teacher, let's say if you are a class teacher and if you have 40 students in your class, if you have a 40 students in your class, let me just maybe write it here, right? Let's say you have 40 student in a class, right? You take a test. You take a test of 20 marks, right? And then you want to note down the marks of students as per roll number. So which data structure maybe we'll use? Let's use list, right? Marks. So you would basically say instead of 40, let's have 10 rather, right? It will be maybe writing 40 numbers, it will take maybe like more time. So let's say someone got 19 mark, the first roll number. The next roll number got, let's say, 18 marks. Next roll number got 1 marks. Next roll number got 0 marks. Someone got 14 marks. Then the next roll number got 20 marks. The next roll number got, let's say, 15 marks. How many numbers are, how many students are done? 3, 3, 6, and 7. Let's say next one got 18, 8, 12, and 19, right? Now let's say 3, 3, 6, 3, 9, 10. See. Now, when we say this element, this is a roll number 1. That's why it is kept at the first location. This is roll number 2, roll number 3, roll number 4. So if I want marks of 6 roll number or roll number 6. So how can we find out that, how can we access the roll number 6 marks? 6 number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But though it is on the 6th number, but the index it has is what? 5, correct? This will be 2, this will be 3, 4, and 5. That's why here we need to have it as what? 5, correct? So that's how you can access, right? And then why I created this list. Do you see like 19 and 19, right? It is allowed. Duplicate elements are allowed. Why? Because now roll number 1 and roll number 10 both have the same number of same marks, right? So that's doable. But in sets, remember, in sets, duplicates are not allowed. Okay, that we'll see when we go through the sets. Okay, so this is how basically we can have the duplicate elements. Okay, we can also have the distinct elements that we already saw. Now, how do we access the elements from the list? That is also we saw, correct? So in order to access the list elements, we refer to the what? Index number. And we basically always use that index operator inside the square brackets. And always remember, this index has to be what? An integer. If it is something else, it is not going to work. Let's say now, if I say char, is that going to work? No. See what it says? The list indices must be integer or slices, not the str, and this is str. Correct? Now, what if I say 11? Are there like 12 elements here? When I say 11, that means what? There are 12 elements. Are there 12 elements? No. So when I try to access 12, right? Since that element doesn't exist here, it will say out of range. Okay, out of index, out of range. So remember, these are a kind of the errors which you should be aware of. So how do we access the element? That's we saw. Now, how about the multi-dimensional list? Multi-dimensional lists, right? Let's say, let's say you have two divisions. You have two divisions with you, right? The division one and division, the first division, right? First division has 3 students and second division has 5 students, correct? And now you again take the test of 20 marks. But now if you want to record the results, right, how would you record using the lists? So for this, you will create one list, correct? Let's say someone got 12 marks, someone got 11 marks, someone got 19 marks, correct? And for this, you will basically create another list. I'm just maybe copying it from here and then put it here, correct? But we want a combined list of these two, correct? We want a combined list of these two. Then how do we do that? It's easy, right? See, so we can say marks and then again it is going to be list, but we will add list as an element inside list. See, is list as an element inside list. Do you see this? List as an element inside list. So this is called as a multi-dimensional list. So what does that mean when I say, so marks is a list which has two elements, 1 and 2, correct? So if I say marks of first division, you can just say marks 0. So what it is going to print? It will print all 3 elements, like this complete thing, right? If I say the marks of second division, and if I say 1 here, it will print all these things. So if we try to run this, see, marks of first division are what? 12, 11, 19, and for the second division. But if I want to find out the marks of roll number 2, see, what I want to find out, marks of roll number 2 from second division, correct? So how do I find out? Well, I know second division means this, correct? And then roll number 2 means what? This one. Now how do we find out then, right? See, since it is a second division, so let's say roll number, I'll just maybe copy paste here, right? So that we can maybe write print it, that same thing. So second division, what does that mean? Second division means marks 1, correct? And that inside that you want to have uh, against roll number 2. Roll number 2 means what? This one, correct? So 2 minus 1, 1. So what it will do, it will go to marks 1. So this one, and then inside that, again it will go to the first element, that is 0th element and first element. So it will print as what? 15. See, is it? So that's how you can, if you want to find out, if you want to access this, then how will that, how will you basically access that? So 0 and then this will be 4. That's 1 and 4, correct? And this is going to be what? A fifth, roll number 6 rather, correct? See, easy. So that's how it is going to be. Okay. So we saw how do we access the elements from the multi-dimensional lists. Okay. Now what do we mean by the negative indexing now? What do we mean by the negative indexing, right? Now let's say we'll have this as a original list as a marks, right? And then maybe we'll remove all this stuff. Okay. We already know if it is a indexing, right? See, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, this is 8, and this is 9. But what does it mean by negative indexing? Let's say if I want to print marks -1, what it will print? See, it printed 19. Is this 19 or this 19? Let me change this to something else. Test. Because we can have the heterogeneous list as well, right? See what it is going to print. Test. What does that mean? What does that mean? See, this would be the -1. When it is a negative, it comes like this, correct? Now let's try to print a -2. Marks -2. So what it is going to print? 12. That means this. So this is what? -2. And so on. -3. Correct. Then this will be -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, and -10. So let's try to print a -10. Yeah. So -10, what it is going to give? 19. That is this one, right? Now, what about -9? -9 will be what? 18. See, what about, let's say -9, -8, -7? -7 would be what? A 0. This is how the negative indexing works. But we know this is -10. And what about if we give the -11? How it is going to behave? It will say list index out of range. There is nothing as a -11, right? This will be -4, -5, and all the way this will be -10. But there is nothing beyond -10 on this side. That's why it is a list out of index. Okay, remember. So you can use the negative indexing. Then why do we use the negative indexing? Let's say if someone ask you keep fourth last element of marks, right? So what it would be easily, because we want to count it from backside now, right? From the end. So we will say count it from the end, right? So it will give us the last fourth, 15. See, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Remember, when it is a negative mark, -1, it starts with the -1 index. But from the front, it starts with what? The 0 index, remember. So this is how the negative indexing is. So negative sequence indices represent positions from the end of the array. So instead of having it to compute the offset in the list, it is enough to just write what? Basically, with negative index. Okay. So how do we find out the size of the Python? Size of the Python list. Now, what is the size of this particular list? You just need to use the length. You just need to use the length function. So length, is this correct? this marks, right? What it will give? It will give the complete length of this list. See, 10. But if I give -4, what it is going to give? See, it gives the error. Why? Object type is what? Int. And for integer, there is no length function. For integer, there is no length function because it is operating, the length is operating on what? 15. So it is not a, uh, so you cannot basically find out the length of it. But if I say, if I have like this, so one of the element I have a list. So what it will give now? Say it is giving 3. So to operate the length function, there has to be a sequence data type. Okay, so this is how it is. What if we have the empty list? Let's say marks, and if I say just nothing, so what would be the size of this? It's going to give us what? 0. Remember, so the empty list has size 0, whereas the list with the number of elements will give the length as a number of elements. Now, as of now, what we have seen, we have basically declared and assigned the values to the list, right? But how to take list as an input from user, means from std in, right? Standard console, the way in C++ use scanf, correct? In shell you use read, correct? So that way. So how do we basically use std in as a input for the user to provide the list? So there is a function, see, so marks, let's say, yeah. So there is a function input, we will say enter the marks, student marks, correct? Students marks. And now this should be what? Basically space separated. Always remember what it should be, a space separated list. Yeah. And then once you say input, it will basically give this message to the user and it will wait for something to be entered in a space separated. Once you press the enter button, right, you can just maybe have that marks printed. Let's see how it is. Yeah. So uh, so see, it is now waiting here, correct? Now we will say 34, 45, 56, 67, -89, 9.0, and I enter it. So see, but when I printed right here, and if I say normal list, 35, 45, 67, 89, whatever it is, right? And if I print this as a normal list, if I print this as what? A normal list, how it is going to be different? 34, 56, 67, enter. When I print the normal list, it prints in the curly braces and the comma separated. But when I print this input, it prints as it is. What does that mean? It is considering this as a string. It is not considering this as what? A list. So you need to basically first convert that into the list. You need to first convert that into what? A list. So lst, you can say marks, and then there is a function split. So when you split it on a space, now when you print here lst, it will basically print lst as what? The list. So see, so 35, 45, 56. See, is it? Now these are again considered as what? The strings. Do you see? This 34 is an integer, but this 34 is what? A character. So you will have to change that too. Okay. So this is how. So if you say a comma separated, right? What you will use here then? You will use comma as a splitting to split it, right? See. So if I say 34, 45, 50, 67. See. So whatever delimiter you are using here, you need to use that delimiter for the split so that the input which is given from the user will be splitted with that delimiter and then stored into the lst variable, and that lst is a list. Okay, so that's how basically we can accept the input from the user with some delimiter, comma, space, anything, semicolon. Okay, and then use the split function on that just to make sure that we convert that into the list. Okay, so now, but then this is going to only get us a basically a string, right? What if I want to use it like, let's say, integer? I want to convert that into the list integer, right? So how would that be? Correct. So if I can say like int, okay, now when I try to run this 34, 56, 67, see, now here it came, but at this end, what it is saying, this is not something maybe which we can convert into what? An integer. So in this case, you basically need to have a single number. This will be what? A single number. If you want to use the int directly, it will be what? A single number. So if you want to accept, let's say, a set of integers, right? Let's say list of integers. List of integers. How do we do that? Okay. So the very first thing, accept the size of list. Okay, how do we accept the size of list? LST size. Let's define it as what? LST size. When you say LST size, right, you need to basically give a input, enter the total number of integers. Correct. So here we will enter the total number of integers, and then this is going to give us the string, but we need to convert that string into integer. So we will basically typecast it. Okay, now this only gives us a size of the list. Then what else we need to do? If we want to maybe have the multiple elements stored into the list, that we need to do it using what? The map. Okay, that we need to give it a sort of map. Now let's maybe have it like this. Okay, so I would rather use a map. So very first thing I want to list is what? A basic LST is what? List. Correct. So it is a list. Now the list is going to be what? A map. Correct. A list is going to be what? Map. And then this list will have the dimension what? 0 to n. This is a list. Let me show it like this. This is a list. It will have the dimension this, and then whatever the user is going to provide, right, that will be converted into map. We will see that map function in detail, right? The map is of integers, and then we will give the user, right, enter the integer elements. So the user will basically enter the elements, but those will be basically strings. So we need to strip that and split over space, because we are having those as a space separated. Now when you say this LST will be what? Your final list. Now let's see. We'll try this one, right? So see, the enter the total number of elements, it's a 5. Enter the integer elements 34, 23, 45, 67, 89, 5 elements. So n is not defined. Why n is not defined? Because this is LST size what we have here. correct? So now let's rerun it, right? So 5 elements, 34, 45, 56, 78, 89. See, do you see that? This is a normal list which we have printed here, right? We can maybe remove that, and then this is the one which we have asked user to enter. So this is how basically you can accept the list from the users. Now, how do we basically update the list? How do we update the list? Correct. Now update the list. Now the very first thing, update list. Let's maybe take one list as, right, 23, 45, 56, 67 is a list we have. So the very first thing we can do it, what? Append. Let's print the lst. Append means what? Adding element at the end. So whatever is here, right, we will just maybe add element at the end. So when I say lst dot append minus 45, so, and if I say print lst, at first it will print only these elements, but after appending, right, it will print these elements, and at the end this will be appended too. So when you say like this, see, earlier before append only 4 elements were there. After append there was one more element at the end. Append means at the end. You can basically have, you can append maybe, let's say, any number of elements. Let's say 45.0, 65, and then str, variable. So now before appending this will be there, and after append, right, there will be five more values there. See, okay. So this is what the append function is all about. Now, so let's say if you want to append something in a range, there is a for loop we can use. But when we will be using a for loop, right, we'll look into that. Okay. So you can append the basically elements. Now let's say this is a list one, right? Another list. I'm creating another list. Test 44.0 minus 34, 12. Now I want to append this list to this, right? What I can just say, I'll just maybe remove this part, and then I can just say lst dot append, and then directly another list I can say. See, so what it will basically do. So this is the one, but it appended the complete this list as an element here, not the complete elements. This is the appending another list as an element rather than merging. It is not a merge, remember. Okay. Now how do we insert? We can basically insert element in between. Okay. Now let me just maybe remove this part here, right? If I want to insert, not index, insert, correct. If I want to insert the element at third position, and the element which I want to insert is minus 11, what does that mean? It will insert the element minus 11 at third position. See, so see, earlier it was this, and then after this line it inserted minus 11 at the third position, 0, 1, 2, 3, correct. So this is the way you can basically insert the element at any position. Okay. What if minus 1, where it will add, it is still adding here. Why? Is this considered as 0? Yes. Okay. What if minus 2? See, minus 2, it has come one on this side. Minus 3, it has come on one this side more, right? This is how basically you can insert. You can insert any element. Let's say if you say minus 3, and then again if you say minus 3, again if you say minus 3, and test, what will happen? It will first insert -11 here, and then before -11 it will insert test. See, okay. So this is how it is going to be. You can also insert the list. You can also insert the list r, tr, and anything, right? So if we go here, see, so if it added another list as an element at -3 position. Okay, so this is what we can basically use the insert. Now how do we mean by extend? How do we mean by extend? When we say extend, right, now here it comes as a merge. So let's say this is a list 1, right, and there is a list 2, or let's say yeah, list 2, correct. 33, 22, 11, like this. Now when you print list 1 here and print list 2, it will just print the things as is. But what if you want to add all these elements into the list 1, then you just basically say list1 dot extend with lst2. Now if you print the list 1 and list 2 again, the list 1 will be different. List 1 will be what? Now everything here, including these elements as well as these elements. Okay, so see, this is the list 1 is now, it is changed. It has now all these elements. Now let's think of this list2 dot extend lst1, and then if you print here list1 and list2, what do you think? What will be the value of list2 now? Here list1, list2 as it is. List1 is extended with this and this, correct, but list2 it doesn't change. Here list2 is now we are changing. So this will be there, and then again all these things will be added. So this will have the 12 elements now. See, do you see? So this is what extend means, what joining the two or more than two lists. Okay, now how do we reverse a list? How do we reverse a list? Now let's say this is a list 1, but I want to reverse a list. We can simply use a reverse function. I can just say uh, basically lst1 dot reverse, correct, and then I'll print lst1. Now when we try, so earlier it was 23, 45, 56, 67. Now it is 67, 56, 45, 23. Correct? So this is how we can basically use the reverse function. Now there is a reversed function as well. Now what exactly the reversed means? The reversed, okay, there is some function as a reversed as well. Okay. So we saw a reverse function, but there is something reversed as well. Reversed. Okay. Now this function basically returns the iterator. What does it? It returns iterator, where this will change the or reverse the existing list. This will reverse the existing list. See, here list 1 is reversed, correct? But if we say reversed, if we say reversed, it says there is nothing as a reversed on a list 1. So why? So we need to basically use a reversed in a different way. So we need to basically use a reversed like this. Reversed on lst1, correct. Now when you print reversed on lst1, let's see what it is going to give us. See, it basically just gave the iterator, nothing else. So you basically need to change that or typecast that with the list so that you get the reversed list exactly. So see, this was the original one, then using the reverse it got reversed, and then this was the again the original one. So this is how we can use the reverse function. Now how do we use the remove function? How do we use the remove function? Remove function is the function which to be used to remove any element from the list. So the elements can be removed from the list by using this built-in remove function. But it basically will error out if the element doesn't exist in the list. Okay. So remove method only to use to remove one element at a time. It cannot use to remove the more than one elements. Okay. Now let's see how to do that. Right. Now this is a list we have. Now if I say lst1 dot remove, if I remove 56 and then again if I print lst1, so earlier it was this and then here I removed 56, so it should not, the next it will not have the 56c, correct? So this is how it is going to be. But what if I put it here like 66? What if I put it 66? Do we have the 66 here? So when it will try to remove the 66 from this list, it will basically what? Error out, see? So X is not in a list. Okay, so that's how it is going to be. This was up this print. Okay, so it did not went here. So this is how we can remove the single element. Okay, now then how do we use, yeah, maybe right, yes, we can only remove the only one element at one time. Let's say now if you want to remove the two elements, so you need to basically write that call twice. So you can, let's say if you want to remove 67 as well, or right. So in this case now first it will remove 56, then it will remove 67, and then it will only keep 23 and 45 in that, right? Now 67 it got doubled out, so we need to change it to what? 56. See, so this is how we can use the remove. So and you can basically remove the elements, right? Multiple elements using that thing. Okay, now what is a pop function? Okay, what is a pop function? You might have studied the stack. Stack is the data structure where we pop the last element only. We pop the last element only. So pop is the function which is used to only remove the last element. The remove, we can use any element with the value, but pop we don't need, like, yeah, so we can basically use, we can basically pop or we can delete the element from the list using the pop. So let's see how we can use pop. Right now if I say lst1 dot pop, correct, so by default it will what? Remove the 67 last element and keep this. See, it removed this. If I say one more time pop like this, here only, right? If I just copy paste this again down, right? See, so first deleted 67, 56, 45, 23. What if I say here like 2? So will that result in the error? It did not. So 2 is the index 56 it removed. That's what the difference in remove and pop. Remember, when you give number here, it is an index. When you give here, right, actual value of the element. Okay, remember. So that's what it means. Okay, and then if we give some kind of index which is not already present in there, it will basically raise the error, index error, right? This is how it is going to be like a pop function. Now, how do we slice the list? We can basically slice the list. You can find out or you can print only the certain number of elements there. Okay. Now, how do we do that? Let's say you have a list like this: 23, 11, 78, 87, 66, 65, 90, 99. Okay, these many elements are there in the list. And now I just want maybe to have the elements from here onwards, the 8. Like let's say if I want to have the element from the 3 to 8, how I can, right? So you can basically have the elements of, let's say, 3 to 8 like this. So what it is going to print, it will print only the elements from 3 to 8. See, so this is the third index, and this is the 4, 5, 6, and 7. That is what? A eighth element. So this 8 is not counted here. Okay. So this is how basically you can slice the range from 3 to 8. The range from 3 to 8. Then what does it mean by this then? If I say like this, if I don't put anything here, and then if I put it 5 here, right? So it will print everything afterwards fifth index element. See, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. From 11 onwards, everything it will basically print. That's how it is going to be. Yeah. The next thing, how do we print the all elements using the slice operation? We can use like this. Nothing on the both sides. Right? See, all the elements, right? Now, how do we use the negative index in the slicing then? Let me remove this thing, and then what if I say like -6 here and -1 here? So it will come from this side, right? So this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. So up till like this, shouldn't it be? See, so from 78 to 90, right? But the last one, as we know, this is not counted, correct? So that's why it is going to be. Okay, the element slice from the index -6 to -1. So how do we print the list in a reverse using the slice then? It's very easy, like this. See, this is completely reversed in the single slice operation. Okay, so that is how you can basically use the slicing operation. Now, how do we use the list comprehension? So list comprehensions are basically used to create the new lists from the other iterables like tuples, strings, arrays, list, example, that's not etc. So a list is basically a comprehension consisting of the brackets containing the expressions. Let's maybe have some example, right? Uh, let's say if I want to an example, let me take an example of, let's say, what should we take? A square of all the odd numbers, the squares of all the odd numbers from 1, let's say from 3 to 13, correct? How do I do that then? So I can say odd squares, correct? So odd squares will be what? Let's say x star star x star star. This we are going to see in detail. Okay, don't worry about it. So this is x star star 2 for x in range 3 to 13. Rather, we should have it like 14 so that 13 will be counted too if x% equal to what? 1. Now what it is going to get? See, it will take this range 3 to 14, right? So 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on up till 13 and 14, correct? So it will take one by one, 3, then it will check 3% 2. Is it 1? Yes. Is it 1? Yes. So it will basically square that and put it here. So it will be 9 here. Next, it will take x as a 4. Is 4% 2 is equal to 1? No. So it will skip it. It will next take as a 5. Is 5% 2 equal to 1? Yes. So it will do 5 square, that will be 25, and so on. Actually, it will go up till 169. So 7 square, 9 square, 11 square, and 169. This is how it is going to be, right? So let me just comment out this part, and then we can try to print odd squares. See, all the squares of odd numbers. Now, if the same thing, if you want to have a even squares, right? Let's say from 3 to 14, or maybe let's say from 1 to 100. Only squares of even number, right? See, these are the squares of all even numbers from 1 to 100. Do you see this? You can also have the cube too, right? Let's say we'll only have the cube of first 10 numbers, 10 even numbers. See, 8, 16. That's how, right? So 10 is not counted. So if you want to count the 10, add one more number there. So that's how basically you can use a list comprehension. Okay. And this is where maybe, right, we sum up the list, and we are going to see, right, in more detail, right, what exactly list examples and all. So this is what actually we had it as a part of the list. So the next video will be on the some kind of list examples. We'll see in a practically how to write a code using the lists. Okay. So guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe to the channel so that you will receive all the notifications about the new and uploaded videos, latest videos, and share it with the other people, right, who are really in need to learn the Python. So please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. I wish you happy learning with the Gravity Tech. Thank you.